Good afternoon. Rich Dishman. I'm the Performance Enhancement Consultant here at Penn State University. I'm here to talk to you guys about our upcoming trip to Ireland to play the first game of the 2016 football season. As you know, in about 2 weeks, we're going to head to Ireland. We're going to play University of Central Florida, and it's going to be the first football game of the year for both teams. And my goal here is to talk about motivation and activation for this trip because it's going to be a much different environment than we're used to playing in when we play here home games in the States or away games here in the States. Our past history has shown that the crowds at the football games abroad are full, but they're definitely quieter. Their football education is less, and what this leads to is kind of when we make good plays and we're used to hearing the roar of the crowd, we don't hear it. Okay, it's kind of we make a field goal, they go nuts. We make a big third down play for a first down, we don't hear a sound, and it's kind of awkward for the players and the coaching staff and everyone involved to kind of have that silence when we're expecting the crowd. So what we're going to focus on today are ways to combat that so our players stay focused and into the game and we don't have any lapses during the game because the activation level or the energy level is too low because we don't have the crowd to keep it raised up like we normally do have on a game day. The second thing we're going to talk about, also related to activation or motivation, we're flying across the Atlantic Ocean. A lot of these players have never traveled before, haven't left their own time zones, and definitely haven't gone to Europe. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to prepare them to what it feels like to fly across the ocean, have jet lag, have the body kind of get used to the new time zone, and then still be able to perform on the field and practice for the week before when we get there. So our two main topics of our goals today are going to be cover how we keep these players motivated and how we decrease their activation level so they can get activated for practices and games, and then also how to deal with jet lag. And again, motivation and activation are going to fall into that role. Okay, so that's our topic today. We have the coaching staff here. We're here before the team meeting. I think you guys start in about 15 minutes. And we have a couple of the team captains who are juniors and seniors on the team, and they're here to hear this talk so they can kind of know what's going on and why we're doing certain things during this upcoming week of practice because we're going to be switching things up a little bit. Okay? Any questions from anybody? Coach Franklin, any questions? No? Okay, good. Okay, so now you guys already noticed the last couple of weeks we've changed our practice schedule a little bit. We're starting to get closer to the time. We're making our practices earlier, and what we're trying to do, we're trying to get our practice times here in the States to be equal to the same time that we're going to have kickoff in Ireland. All right, so our plan is to try to get our body accustomed to playing at this time. That way, when they go to Ireland, they're a little bit more used to it, and it'll be easier for their bodies to activate once first kickoff arrives. Okay, so that's one of the changes we're making here in the States, or that we've made the practice schedule earlier. The second thing we're doing, we're changing the curfew of the players. Normally midnight, we're going to change it to 9 p.m. Okay, now that we're a week before, 10 days before we're flying to Ireland, what we want to do, we want to make sure these players are well rested and they're used to going to bed a little bit earlier. And that's going to make the adjustment for the time zone adjustment a lot easier once we go to Ireland. So the next week and a half, all the players are going to have a 9 p.m. curfew. All right, team captains, we're not doing this to punish you. We're doing this because we're trying to get the players ready and get the body sleep cycle ready for our trip to Ireland. Okay? The third thing, we're going to start shifting our practices. We always work on the plays. You guys are working on the plays, but coaches, we've talked about making the individual battles, the individual task-oriented actions of each position and each position group to be priorities, all right, during the practice. We want you guys to focus on not the outcome of the play, but we want to focus on the little task-oriented performance and process goals that make the players better. The reason why we're doing this, we're worried that when we go to Ireland and we're playing a game and that cornerback makes a great play, or the running back sees a hole kind of get wide open and he tries to go through it, normally we'd hear the crowd cheering and motivating us, but we're probably not going to hear that now, okay? So what we want to do, we want the players to start focusing on the little task in front of them that they have to perform, and rather than the reaction of the crowd. Okay, and that's going to keep their motivation and activation levels high enough to perform what they're trying to do in the game. Okay, so during the practices this week, guys, we're focusing on skill-oriented, task-oriented activities. So that's one-on-one between the quarterback and the wide receiver, battles between the offensive and defensive line, battle from the safety and the running back. Okay, the quarterback's making the right read, the cornerbacks making the right audibles. Okay, these are the skills that we're going to focus on during the week, and we're also going to start giving out little rewards to the players and the team units that perform best in practice. Okay, we're going to have these awards. Hopefully, will help the motivation, and we're also going to pit the second team against the first team in order to keep both teams, because we're going to need both players. It's the first game of the year. We're going to need both first team and second team in order to step in and perform well, because our players are going to get tired since it's the first game of the year. All right, so we're going to pit player against player, position group against position group, and first team against second team in order for them to compete and get ready to what it's like to get the feeling of what it's like to compete against an opponent. Okay, so those are some of the things that we're doing in practice. Okay, luckily we have some great grad assistants, and they've been hard at work on the video machines. And on these video machines, what they're doing, they're putting together 2 different tapes. Okay, the first tape is for our flight over. This tape is going to consist of music that kind of puts everyone to sleep, very soothing. And our purpose is for the players to listen to this on our flight over, and hopefully that will help them fall asleep and will allow them the easier transition once we get to Ireland. The second tape is going to be the more important tape right now. The tape is going to consist of videos of the team and players performing well, okay? And this tape, as a team and the individual players performing well with music that's motivational, is going to play on the team buses. It's going to play at the hotel. It's going to play on our way to the stadium, and it's going to play in the locker room on game day. Okay. In addition to that, each player is going to get an individual 5-minute tape of their own clips. Okay. So it's going to be clips that they've made of great plays they've made, whether it's breaking up a pass, or scoring a touchdown, the offensive line making a hole for the running back, or the linebacker making a great tackle. And we're also going to cut in plays by NFL stars making those same plays from the same position. So the player's going to have videos of themselves and also their what they want to be, which is an NFL player, making these one-on-one task-oriented skill plays in the game. And again, this is going to be accompanied by music. All right, and they'll be able to look at this at on their iPhone, on their iPad, on their computer, in the hotel room, on the way to the game, in the locker room, whenever they need to do it to get pumped up a little bit. Okay, do we have any questions? Okay. Yes, each player is going to have their own tape. Okay, the question was, are they one tape for the whole team or for each player? There's going to be a tape for the whole team, and then each player is going to have their own individual tape. Obviously, some guys are going to have more game film than others, so their tapes will be more interesting. But the idea here is we want the players to focus on their individual one-on-one battles that they perform, and if they succeed, then the whole team is going to succeed. Okay, so that's our plan on that front. Okay, so going into the flight, the week before, we're going to have earlier bedtimes. We're going to make sure the players are well rested and well fed. And we're also going to make sure they're hydrated. Okay, we need them to be as rested and as healthy as they can be when they're going over on this flight. Once we're on the flight, we're going to have music that hopefully puts them to sleep. We're going to have the cabin lights off the whole time. There are going to be no card playing. It's a night flight. I think we're leaving at 10 p.m. and we arrive at 7 a.m. in Ireland, in Belfast. So the idea is we want these players to sleep on the plane. Okay, now here's the important thing, coaches, training staff, and team captains. And the team captains, if you're hearing any grumbling from players, feel free to let them know why we're doing this schedule, okay? We don't want them to be upset the coaching staff and start grumbling. As soon as we land in Ireland, we're going to go to the hotel, drop off our stuff in the hotel room, and then meet downstairs for a breakfast, and then we're going to go have our first light practice, okay? What we do not want to do is have these players fall asleep right away, sleep the day away, and that's going to end up messing up the whole sleep schedule for the next 3 or 4 days before the game, right? And it's going to make it harder for the players to activate in practice and activate for the game. So we're going to keep the players up the first full day. Okay, so we're going to get to the hotel. We're going to have breakfast. We're going to have a team practice, not heavy one, but we're going to have a walkthrough, nice 2-hour practice. We're going to go see the stadium where we're playing. Okay, and then we're going to do some sightseeing around town. Come back, we'll have dinner, and then we'll have curfew at 8 p.m. and hopefully the guys will go to sleep. And when they wake up the next day, their body clocks will be more attuned to the Ireland time. Okay, so that's our initial game plan for there. The idea with that is we want to keep the players activated. All right. Now, during the week of practice, what we're going to do, we're going to again focus on the individual battles. Okay, these individual battles are task oriented because we feel like the task oriented battles will be more productive. Task oriented goals will be more productive than to have the outcome goals. Again, since we don't have the crowd, we don't have our home fans, we don't have our home band there to motivate us. Okay. And then what we're going to do as a coaching staff, we're going to have to keep these guys, we're going to have to keep their motivation directed. Okay. And what we do when we keep them directed, the best way for us to do that are to have well-run practices and to have a game plan for the game that's specific and individual to the team, the player, and each unit. Okay. So our goal as a coaching staff now is to give these players a game plan. In this game plan, they're going to have the tasks that each player has to do and each unit has to do in order to win the game. All right. During practices, we're going to focus on those tasks. Okay. This is our way of directing their intensity and motivation towards the game. Okay. Then we're going to try to stay persistent. Okay. We want these players to be persistent, fight through the jet lag, fight through the energy of being in a new park, a new country, new city. And we're going to be persistent by making sure we have team practices that start and end going at a full tilt or at 100%. Okay, if we start seeing that the players are kind of losing their interest or losing their energy level, we're going to take a quick break. All right, we're going to break the team up into their individual groups, and we're going to go over the goals, the process and performance goals of that specific group and of the players in the group to remind them why they're working hard. Okay, so that's our plan there. Now, another thing on game day, what we're going to make sure we do at halftime, we're going to make sure that we adapt our game plan as a coaching staff to fit the needs of the game. And if we have to make alterations, we're going to make alterations. And this is going to keep the players focused on their task at hand again. And we're also going to add in a few new trick. You guys already talked about Coach Franklin, adding a few trick plays that we're going to intersperse throughout the game in order to kind of keep the excitement level going on. All right, some things that we want to do, guys. Captains, this is going to fall on your shoulders. During the game, during practices, we're going to have activation cues. Okay, these activation cues are going to be physical. These activation cues are going to be verbal, and they could be images. Okay, it could be music. All right. So what we're going to do during the game, we're going to set some things like activation goals where you might slap the pads of your teammates. If you think they're fading a little bit, slap their shoulder pads. Make sure they're focused on the play at hand. Okay. You might have a certain nickname for a guy or come up to a guy and encourage him, yell at him, tell him what to do. Okay. We need to make sure that if we notice people slipping, that we activate them by using a verbal or a physical cue. Okay, now we're going to go over this with the team, and that way each player has their own cue that they can go to, and in case one of you guys misses it and they need to activate themselves. Okay, these physical and verbal cues are going to be things that are going to remind the player of what their task is, that they have to keep their energy level high, and to focus on what's going on. Okay, now coaching staff, what we need to pay particular attention to is the special teams unit. All right, the special teams unit, they're going to be the first ones on the field, whether we're kicking off or we're receiving first. We need this special teams unit to be ready to go from the kickoff of the football. Okay, if they're kind of lethargic or lackadaisical for that first kick, and we either fumble it or we get pinned inside our own 10, or the other team has a great run back, it's going to kind of dictate where the game is going to go. So we need to make sure that we're the ones with the high energy level. We're the ones that are focused from kickoff on. Okay, and we're going to do this by pulling the special teams unit, whether it's our kicking team or the receiving team, before the play to remind them of all the things that they need to do. Okay, remind them to stay at their state to perform their tasks, stay in their lanes, perform their duty. Okay, we don't want them overexcited or lethargic. We need them to be spot on. We're going to kind of have them give each other physical cues and verbal cues to make sure that they're ready to go. That's going to be a key part of our strategy, is making sure from the first play to the last play, our players are motivated and ready to go. Okay. Another thing we're going to do, coaches, players, we're going to start having non-performance goals or rewards for stuff like when a player gets hit and is on the ground, how many of his teammates come over to pick him up. Okay. We want these players to stay active. If a guy's on the ground, everyone should run over, help him up off the ground. Okay, that's going to keep the team activated and motivated. If there's a tackle going on, we don't want to have one person tackle. If one guy has them, we want the whole team to come over and help the tackle. All right, this is gonna keep everybody sharp when they're on defense. Okay, so those are just some things that we're going to do to try to keep the players motivated and keep them activated for this game in Ireland. Any questions? No? Nothing? Okay. So to kind of review, players, we're going to focus, or coaches, we're going to focus on our practice schedule here in the States. We're going to focus on keeping the goals process and performance oriented, right? So we're going to work on technique. We're going to work on execution of plays. We're going to work on units like the offensive line and defensive line working together, the secondary working together. We're going to work on the individual one-on-one battles between cornerback and the wide receiver, or the left tackle and the right end. Okay, and they're also going to have videos of these individual battles so they can look at them at home. Okay, we're also going to worry about getting their bodies acclimated so it's easier for them to activate during practices and games. But we're going to do that by keeping them hydrated, keeping them well rested, and start to shift our clock, our schedule, to match the clock of the game in Ireland. Yeah, it's going to be an important thing. It's going to increase the quality of our practices and make it easier for the players to adjust for the game. All right. During the game, coaching staff, we need to make sure that we have a game plan ready to go and that the players all know what their task is and what they need to do to perform their task. Right. These goals are going to keep them focused on what they have to do individually, and we want their center of focus to be on their task at hand in front of them and not from the crowd. All right. If these players start, looking for the cheering of the crowd or the band playing or the music that they want, that they're used to, and they don't get it, they might feel a little bit flat. And that's the last thing. We don't want any flat players out there. Okay. And so those are the main activation and motivation techniques that we're going to use to keep the players ready for the game, to make sure they're ready for the kickoff. We're going to use goal setting, which are the performance and process goals, right? We're going to use physical cues, which are patting each other in the butt, slamming the shoulder pads, helping each other off the ground, gang tackling. We're going to use verbal cues, which are music. Okay, think of the music. Other players encouraging each other. We're going to use mental imaging through videos. So the videos seeing themselves, the players perform their task, seeing NFL players perform the tasks that they want to perform, and constantly seeing those so they can visualize it at home or in a hotel room and see it in their head before the game and then execute once they're on the field. All right. Coaching staff, we talked about what we need to do here. If you have any questions, let me know. I have a handout of some of the things we talked about today, and I'll be handing that out afterwards. And I'm also going to go talk with the players, remind them what physical verbal cues are, remind them what the intrinsic motivation is, right? We're playing the game to perform our skills rather than for the outcome or for the pleasure of the fans, right? We want to execute our skills. If we execute our skills, we're going to win the game. And so that's it. So we're gonna continue our week here at practice, and then we're gonna get on the plane. We're gonna go to Ireland. We're gonna enjoy Belfast and Dublin and all the cities in Ireland. We're gonna practice hard, and we're gonna go to the game. And from the first kickoff, we're gonna be focused and intent on performing our tasks and beating University of Central Florida. All right. Thank you very much. I'll be handing out the handouts, and I'll be around for any questions. Thank you.